Good morning. Welcome to our latest and greatest new show here on the Movers and Shakers Unlimited Network. This is Engaging with PICARD. I am your host, Josh Pritchett, and I am pleased today to welcome a very special co-guest host who will be joining me today. You may know him as the host of WERA 96.7 in Arlington's Fantastic Forum radio show. He is the host and creator of Fantastic Forum. Please welcome Ulysses E. Campbell. Good morning, Ulysses. Oh, I'm sorry, Ulysses. We're having a little bit of microphone trouble here. Hang on just one second. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh, okay. I can. You can hear me. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Hang on. We'll get that resolved. But just a moment. My co-host Ulysses E. Campbell will be joining me to discuss the first 2 episodes of the new season of Star Trek PICARD, and I am very excited about this. So if we'll just give him a moment here, and we'll see if we can get this. We'll get this straightened out. In the meantime, I just want to let people know that in case you haven't seen it, Chris Papillon and I just did the season finale of Rediscovering the Federation this morning also. So you are going to want to check that out. Also, if anybody here is near the Richmond, Virginia area, GalaxyCon is still going on throughout the day at the Greater Richmond Convention Center. So that it's really a lot of fun. If you want to get out and do something, walk around the city of Richmond and attend the convention today, there'll be some great guests. Giancarlo Espinosa from Breaking Bad and The Mandalorian will be there. Jim Starlin is signing autographs today. William Shatner is still there signing autographs, as is Evangeline Lilly of Lost, The Hobbit, and the Marvel Universe. So that is something to really go for. Oh, and Brett Spiner. I'm sorry. How could I forget? Brett the Man Spiner from Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek PICARD is also there. So, sorry. I'm just going to keep things going. So I'm going to, while we're waiting for Ulysses to and our team to get everything set up on that end, we're going to engage with the beginning of the new season, and what a beginning it was. So the episode opens with Picard back at his vineyard in Lavar, France, bringing in the harvest, and the song, and oddly enough, because time travel is a huge part of this season so far, the song "Time Is on My Side" is playing in the background. And we find it's been 2 years since the events of the first season of Picard. And Picard now is tangentially back with Starfleet. He is now the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. And he is preparing to address the new graduating class of Starfleet. Elnor has become a member, began attending Starfleet Academy. He is now graduating from the Academy. Roth and Chris have both rejoined Starfleet. Roth is now a commander, I think tactical officer on board the USS Excelsior. And for those of you who are interested, that is the very same Excelsior. Apparently, we found out that the USS Excelsior, which we first saw way back in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, is now the longest-serving vessel in Starfleet history. She's been through a number of refits, but she's still out there. And Rafi and the newly minted Ensign Elnor are crew members. Chris has gotten a new job at Starfleet. He is now the captain of the USS Stargazer. And he is this is a new stargazer. It is a Sagan class vessel, and it is one of the newest ships in the fleet. Dr. Girardi and Dosh have we find them engaging in a diplomatic mission to Delta, which of course you remember the Deltans from the movie Star Trek: The Motion Picture. The aliens represented by Ilea. And Seven has apparently bought Chris's old ship and is now still running with the Ferris Rangers. She is fighting off a group of raiders that are trying to steal medical supplies from her vessel, while she is still trying to help people. Meanwhile, back at Chateau Le Picard, Jean-Luc is having a moment with Lars, his Romulan assistant, housekeeper. We found out that her husband has passed away sometime in the last 2 years, and she approaches Picard about the possibility of them taking their relationship from friendship to something more romantic. And Picard is not so certain, and then he has some flashbacks about his childhood and about his mother. These are somewhat very dark flashbacks. We don't know exactly what happened. We don't know the full story, but we can assume that we will find out more as the season goes on. Meanwhile, wait, I think Ulysses is ready to join us. Ulysses, are you there, buddy?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, that's an improvement.
Yes, it is. It is. Welcome. Welcome to Engaging with Picard, my friend. I don't know if you just heard, I just got to the part where Picard was having the flashback about his mom and him being the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. And did you hear everything I was just talking about?
I did not.
Okay, I was just sort of recapping the first part of the episode. I had not gotten to the big part where the USS Stargazer suddenly finds a subspace anomaly. Would you like to take it from there, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, assuming that we have worked out all these problems, I am still having a minor technical problem in that the software will not allow me to rotate to landscape, which is why I am at the lower half of this portrait. So, assuming that this is acceptable, we can go buddy. From here.
You're fine.
Have I mentioned I hate this software, by the way?
No, I can tell you are not a fan, my friend.
Well, or rather, it's not a fan of me. So,
yes.
All right. So, wait. So, Josh, you were giving. Oh, and by the way, I had no idea that you spoke Klingon. You're going to have to slow down. My universal translator isn't working properly. All right. But yeah, so did I hear you correctly that you had wanted me to take over the synopsis? You had been very effectively sharing the events of episode 1 of Picard season 2. So, all right. So you had gotten to the point where, what point had you gotten to?
I was just talking about how Jean-Luc that Laura's and Jean-Luc were having a moment, and then he was having some flashbacks about his mother and her relationship to his father, and apparently it did not look like it was a particularly happy one. And then I was going to go into the fact that Captain Rios and the crew of the Stargazer had encountered a subspace anomaly, and if you'd like to take it from there, sir.
Oh, sure. Well, Rios and his, I assume relatively new command, the Stargazer, where he is comfortable enough to sit on the bridge, actually with his cigar, which I've never seen before, but hey, all right, Captain Rios. And this anomaly begins making a broadcast. And so apparently someone within the anomaly is asking for Admiral Jean-Luc Picard. So back on Earth, Picard is visited by a Starfleet admiral who brings him up to speed. Also, I thought it was interesting because the admiral who visited him had been a member of the Enterprise crew. She had been on several episodes of The Next Generation. I suppose largely a background player, but had been a transporter officer and occasionally at the helm station on the bridge. And I thought it was delightful that they brought this actress back in a more substantial role. In any case, she conveys the news about what the Stargazer has encountered. By this time, the Starfleet has sent an entire fleet of ships to this anomaly. And Picard comes out and signals that he is there, and turns out that this anomaly is actually being generated apparently by the Borg. And the Borg transports their queen on board the bridge of the Stargazer, where she begins taking over the ship. I mean, these tendrils come out and embed themselves in the ops and helm controls. And not only is the Stargazer being assimilated, but apparently the entire Star Fleet that is there is being assimilated. And so, in an act of desperation, Picard orders emergency self-destruct, and the ship self-destructs. And if you would like to pick it up from there.
Yes. So Picard initiates destruct. Being an admiral, I think it makes sense that he, would only need his code to order a self-destruct of the Discovery. The Stargazer. Simply because in the past, when we've seen self-destruct being initiated, it's usually been by 2 or 3 of the upper command staff of the ship. But then suddenly, just as the ship appears to blow up, Picard finds himself back at his chateau wearing a very different and darker Starfleet uniform. And he's wondering, in his words, what the hell is going on? And suddenly we hear the words, Mon Capitan. Oh, I've missed you. Picard turns, and there's his old nemesis, Q. And I believe we have a photograph of that. At that point, Picard is shocked to find his old nemesis has returned. And that then leads us into episode 2. So, Ulysses, would you like to begin our recap of episode 2 now, please?
Oh, I hadn't realized that was where it switched. I mean, because we had the thing. Now, I'll be honest with you, Josh. I'm kind of sketchy on exactly what happens. I remember that once Q starts walking him through this new existence that he's in, and notably, there are 5 skulls that are on display in Picard's chateau. He's got the skull of Grand Naga Zek, General Martok, Gul Dukat, several other ones. And apparently all these were taken as trophies on Picard's missions. This is clearly the mirror universe, and he is Mirror Picard. And of course, we never saw in The Next Generation the mirror universe. They did not revisit that. That wasn't until DS9 that we got a chance to get back to that. So, we have never seen the Next Gen crew in this particular existence. And apparently Picard was, if not the most decorated, Imperial fleet officer, then he was certainly one of the most decorated, and apparently one of the most ruthless. And so we find ourselves on Eradication Day. which is a celebration of the overall viciousness of the empire. Now, one thing that I got to confess that I was a little surprised about with all this, because in the regular timeline for all of this, it seemed when they revisited the mirror universe in DS9 that the Empire had been overthrown and that the Terrans were now on the bottom. But here, apparently, this whatever reversal or rebellion either did not take place or was put down or has been overcome, because clearly the Empire reigns supreme. And, not only Picard here, but as it turns out, the president of the Empire is none other than Annika Hansen, who is now simply Annika Hansen and not Seven of Nine. She awakens in the presidential palace or residence. And the first thing that she realizes is that she has no Borg implants. She feels on her forehead and nothing. Looks at her hand, no Borg implants, 100% human. So please take it up from there.
So the first thing Seven/Annika does is she gives herself a self-aware, self-psychiatric test to see if she's dreaming or in some sort of delusion. And she determines that she is not. And she also finds out that she is apparently married to somebody called, well, I forget exactly his title, but apparently he's also a very high-ranking member of this Earth Imperial government. And he is, it seems like it's a marriage of convenience that he just sarcastically says, "my love," and it's obvious they're not in love with each other. It's just, like I said, it's a marriage of convenience. They are preparing for Eradication Day. We find Elnor is in Osaka, Japan, and apparently he and a number of other Romulan slaves have rebelled and set off bombs. They set off several bombs, commemorate each planet that the Empire is apparently overrun and destroyed. One for Andor, one for Vulcan, one for Romulus, one for Cardassia, one for Kronos. And Rafi shows up to rescue Elnor before these, Starfleet types kill him. But unfortunately, they can't get away. So they head to the capital, which is still in San Francisco. Actually, no, the capital was in Paris, but
headquarters.
Our convenience is it's in San Francisco. And on the pretense of interrogating Elnor, she gets stopped briefly at the door, but Picard clears the way by acting, get out of her way, soldier, and, being very imperious, which, of course, Picard's great strength is his ability to improvise in a conflicted situation. They then, meantime, Annika/Seven makes contact with Chris and finds out that he is also her Chris, the same Chris that she's known for the last few years, and that they have been all teleported to this alternate universe by Q. Well, they don't know yet it's Q. Picard fills them in. And then they find Jarate working in the lower science areas, and she has a particular subject that is getting ready to be exterminated, the Borg Queen. And apparently, it is eradication is going to be a very public event. Ulysses?
Yeah, and it seems as if the Borg Queen is merely one of the enemies of the Empire to be exterminated. Evidently, the other ones are sort of superfluous to the story. We don't find out who they are. But first on the list is the Borg Queen. Now, as Picard fills in the rest of those who had been on the Stargazer and who have also been transported to this new reality, they start trying to determine what has happened and why. And, again, through some confluence of reasoning that I cannot recall whether it was the Borg Queen or whether there was something that Q had said, but they recognized that the change in their timeline occurred in the sometime during the 21st century, early 21st century, and that in order to correct this anomaly, they must time travel and physically go back to fix whatever it is. So, of course, they have an issue. How do we actually get back in time? Another one of the wonderful Easter eggs, I'm going to call it, in this episode, because Picard mentions that Kirk's Enterprise used the slingshot effect numerous times to go back in time, and that would probably be the easiest way. And but Girardi points out, well, they had Spock because the calculations required to pull this maneuver off are extremely complex, and no ordinary person would be able to do it. You got to figure out if you got Jadzia Dax or Spock, then you're in great shape. But otherwise, well, gee, we're all screwed. But as it happens, the Borg Queen can make these necessary calculations. And she also apparently has some other information about a watcher who is in that time period and in a position to help them. So they are in the unenviable position of having to team with the Borg Queen if they are to be successful in their mission to restore the timeline. And please, Josh, take it from there.
Yes, and so after Girardi figuring out a way to overcome this transporter blocker that has gone up, has a security measure to protect President Hansen and General Picard, they managed to get well, it's a little bit more complicated in this. It's taking too long. Picard realizes they're going to have to fight their way out of there. And so he begins shooting at all these other Starfleet people. And during this large fascist ceremony where people are in the audience cheering, kill the Borg Queen and all this stuff. And suddenly they get the transporter working, and Chris is able to get the team off of Earth. And though right before they can warp out of there and head to the sun and warp around and head back to the 21st century, Annika's rather nasty husband and some of his security goons beam aboard Chris's ship, and he says, I wonder what your skull will say, General. Jean-Luc Picard, traitor to the Empire. And that's where the episode kind of cuts off.
What a place for a cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah. So at this point, I think we should talk a little bit about what we liked and what we didn't like as much about both episodes. I'm just going to start. We've got a picture here of the Starfleet vessels. I'd like to show everybody. This was something I thought was very cool, and I thought was a big improvement. If you look here, you have a wide variety of Starfleet ships. I'd like to, bring this up a little bit more, where we can see, and we've got the Stargazer right there at the center. This is the new Stargazer, and like her predecessor, she has 4 nacelles. We got the USS Excelsior off to her port, and we've got some wonderful ships. It looks like we've got a couple of updated Nebula class, and I think there's a Sovereign class and some Akira class. Then you've got another ship that looks like a Galaxy class. That's a Ross class ship, which is an updated version of the old Galaxy class vessels we saw back on that the Enterprise D was. Anybody gets a chance, I highly recommend go look for. There's been some talk about this, but the nice part about this was that at the end of last season, they seemed to just do this big cut and paste where they had one class of ship coming in to save Picard and crew from the Romulans. And one of the things I've always loved about Star Trek is you have this wide variety of all these wonderful ships that they bring in that, granted, a lot of them are specialized, but they can all easily be, go over to combat if they have to. And we didn't see that. Now we get to see that, and we get to see this updated, late 24th, early 25th century fleet of newer ships, and some old ones. Like I said, the Excelsior has now been in service almost 150 years, and she still looks great. And I really enjoyed that. Another thing, of course, I really enjoyed about this episode was, just how good the acting is, and with all the characters, especially in the second episode, Picard's ability to improvise at the last moment, and seeing how much the characters have sort of evolved in the 2 years since we last saw them. I mean, Eleanor has, clearly, grown up a little bit, and is able to see more things than he did when he was a member of the Kulak Malor, and his ability to suddenly improvise is really exciting, and it's just great to watch him in fight scenes because he's so good at it. He really definitely kicks a lot of butt in one scene in particular. Ulysses, what would you like? What were some of your favorite parts of the show?
Well, oh goodness, there was quite a bit to like about this. I was late to the party with Picard only because I didn't actually have Paramount Plus or access to it, and so I was able to not really binge those episodes, but it was all completed at the point at which I started, and so I was able to watch them 2 at a time in some cases. And I've really missed that, actually, because I could have, particularly after the conclusion of episode 3, I would have loved to have seen what came after. But the growth of these characters is one of the things that I really liked, and particularly Picard himself, because one of the things that I have heard said about Picard, and this was going back to season 1, is that it isn't the next generation. And that's quite true, even though it features a number, well, particularly season 1, featured a number of next generation characters. And this is important because unlike some other genres, Star Trek, in terms of science fiction, because of the nature of these characters, the Star Trek characters age out. We've seen it with the original series characters. We're seeing it now with the next generation characters. And particularly a scene with Picard and Q, where Q was being his usual obtuse self, and Picard loses his temper, and he says, "I'm tired of your bull," and I'm not going to, but yeah, "I'm tired of your bull, Q," and this is he's an old man. I mean, in fact, there was an episode in season 1 where Picard was trying to run away from somebody who was chasing him. I forget the details, but he's trying to run and he's winded. He's going up these stairs, and he's an old man. He can't do this. And this is key in terms of who this character is now, because he's not the same guy as who was the captain of the Galaxy class Enterprise. This is a whole new stage of his life. He's got these new people, and the way that he responds to various crises is also very, very different. Something else that I liked was seeing this new empire. I mean, on the one hand, I'm kind of like, really? You guys are going back to the to the empire? We're doing the mirror universe again. But the reason they keep mining it is because it is such a rich source of stories. And I really liked what they did, and particularly how they made 7 of 9 the president. Here's Picard, who is a senior general. I mean, if you're going to do a snow job on these people, you've got folks who are in positions of authority who are reasonably able to do this stuff. I also liked Annie Wershing as the Borg Queen. I mean, this is in some ways the gift that keeps on giving. And I appreciate her as an actress and what she is bringing to this role, because obviously there's there are going to be reversals, all sorts of unexpected types of events as we keep going on, and the idea that they have to partner with her in order to successfully restore the timeline is that creates conflict that is going to be good for advancing this story and for telling an exciting story.
Yeah.
So, only because I don't want to dominate the conversation, I'll throw it back to you and wait for my turn.
One thing I wanted to add on the whole idea of the mirror universe is we have seen throughout the Star Trek multiverse that there, especially in both the episode Parallels from TNG, where Worf goes into alternate realities. And of course, obviously with the Kelvin timeline, which is probably the most dominant feature of this, there are various universes where Starfleet is and the Federation are still a source of good. And of course, we've had one mirror universe, and where obviously, at one point, Philippa Georgiou was the Empress. It's the one we've always known. It's the one eventually that gets overthrown when, by a coalition of Klingons and Cardassians and Bajorans. But there's nothing to say there isn't a variant one. And obviously we're in a variant version of the mirror universe in which the Terran Empire was not overthrown, and that it actually grew and became more genocidal, more homicidal than what we saw. And I thought that was, of course, that's a very scary thought that we have this. As far as anything I didn't really like, I'm a little bit hard pressed at this point. I think overall I liked everything. I mean, obviously there was a lot that went on behind the scenes in the 2 years between the end of season 1 and season 2. I guess that was the plan all along, though. And we can't get bogged down in everything, but it's really, I don't know. I can't really think of anything I've so far been unhappy with. Well, there's one little nitpick thing I had. When you have the scene in the first episode when the Starfleet officers on the bridge of the Enterprise are opening fire on the Borg Queen, I did not like the aesthetic design of the hand phasers. They all looked more like guns, and I kind of like the Type 2 phasers or Type 3 phasers they had on TNG, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine. The kind of ones that initially looked like hand vacuums, but eventually, of course, they evolved to not look as much like that. I like those. I was disappointed that those don't seem to be around and that they're using what looks more like, the idea of the phasers looking more like guns in the mirror universe makes a lot more sense because, they don't care. But I thought there was just something more aesthetic, and it went back to what Roddenberry said, that he didn't necessarily want the phasers to look like guns necessarily. He didn't even want them to be, one of the key complaints they had back in the first season of TNG was that the phasers were like these little 2-inch things that you couldn't really see, and eventually that's why the Type 2s came out. But I think that's just been sort of a nitpick on my part that I just I kind of miss those. And one other thing I'll just say that I did like, I liked how the uniforms matched up with the Prodigy uniforms we saw at the end of season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy when we saw Janeway was out looking for Chakotay and the Protostar. And this kind of thing where they kind of cross over and kind of taper down, and I love that. I thought this great uniform. Don't really, again, like I said, I don't really have anything I have any real general complaints about with this particular episode, with either episode so far. I think they've been appropriately, foreboding and infamous, and really giving our characters something to face off with. And like you, I'm very intrigued by this new Borg Queen. She is definitely quite scary. She's something, and don't want to give anything away. Let's just, but I think you're going to have a great season with this character. So let's see. Usually we do predictions at this point, but we're going to pass that because we're a few weeks behind. Anyway, Ulysses, is there anything else that stood out to you in this season, or so far in the first 2 episodes? I'm sorry.
Well, one of the things that I really liked was Q and how because when they first showed John Delancey and the production pictures from this, it's John Delancey, and he's old too. And I'm sitting there looking at these. Oh, and by the way, when you speak Klingon, you can be completely free to be as nitpicky as you want with all of this stuff. And I bring this up because this is going to be a little nitpicky on my part, but I'm looking at this and I said, I don't mind Q being visibly older. I said, but I'm going to need some explanation. And in fact, what I was hoping was that they were going to do exactly what they did, where when he first appeared, he looked the same as we were accustomed to seeing him. But when he saw Picard had aged, he would decide to age himself so as to be in line with Picard. And that's exactly what happened. I'm thinking, all I need is like 5 seconds of Q being the appearance we were accustomed to on The Next Generation and DS9 and Voyager, and then it's all good. And they gave me that, which was fine, because of course, Q being this omnipotent entity, there was absolutely no reason why he should have aged along with Picard. The only thing that they didn't give me, and there's no reason for it, but I would have liked to have seen him appear in the traditional Starfleet garb also. But he at least you're not wearing traditional Starfleet garb, so I need not either. And the whole reason that he had adopted that in the first place was because Picard was a captain and he wanted to be a captain. And yes, this is the counterpoint. But I really liked that. In terms of stuff that I didn't like, I'm trying to be more progressive in terms of the way that I look at all of this, Josh. And simply put, by that I mean, I am troubled by the fact that so many fans and so many people who describe themselves not simply as fans, but die-hard fans, are as critical of these new Star Trek shows as they are. A lot of serious vitriol directed at Discovery, for example. And, people have their own ideas about this, which I appreciate, and especially the fact that there is a certain degree of ownership that fans take of all of this, as do I, and I'm sure you as well. I mean, these things are near and dear to our hearts. We have certain ideas about what they should and should not be. And when the producers fail to live up to what our expectations are, we can sometimes be kind of critical. And we certainly have that right. But I'm reminded of something that the late Leonard Nimoy actually said about Star Trek. And I'm compelled to observe this only because me as an older fan, I mean, I wasn't quite old enough to watch the original Star Trek series in first run. I do remember seeing parts of some third season episodes. I was all of 6 years old, and this thing was on at 10 o'clock on Friday nights. Again, I remember it, but I really discovered the show more not discovered it, but came to love it more in syndication than anything. But that was the late 60s, early 70s. And, Star Trek has gone through several generations of fans already. And the producers now are not the producers who were doing this stuff. Virtually every time you have a new series, you're getting new producers. Now we have Alex Kurtzman, who's one of the architects of this. And all of this is significant because ultimately, even though it is this thing that we love and that we have come to internalize and even revere to a degree, it's also show business. And, that there is the business part of show business, which means that the people who are producing this show and marketing it and distributing it have to turn a profit doing it. And that's critical. And you can't do that if you are tied to some perceived dogma about what this thing is supposed to be. I mean, for example, Discovery, the bridge of the Discovery, which is supposed to be a ship from before Star Trek, the second pilot, where no man has gone before. Mm-hmm. Well, things don't look like they did on that bridge, but hey, this is 2022. And, granted, a couple of years before when Discovery first debuted. But the key is what the future looked like to people then versus what it looks like now. And also in terms of what the production budgets would afford are vastly different. And if you are going to appeal to a contemporary audience, you got to make this stuff look a certain way. And so a longtime fan like me looks at the Discovery Bridge and says, well, that's way too advanced looking. It shouldn't look anything like that. And yeah, okay, maybe it shouldn't. But if you are trying to appeal to a contemporary audience, it has to. But back to what Leonard Nimoy had said, which was be receptive to where Star Trek wants to take you now, to where what it wants to show you. And if you're a fan, hey, go along on this journey. See what it is. Don't be so resistant. I mean, part of what Star Trek is all about, and this is one of the foundations of it all, is multiculturalism and recognizing that one has to be forward thinking and sort of flexible in terms of not being too judgmental and accepting of other ways and other cultures. And so if you're going to basically be mired in the dogma and say, well, this is what this show looked like back in 1966, okay. I mean, I get it. But there's still some very practical reasons why modern Star Trek is not going to adhere to that. And I don't even know that something like that is desirable anyway. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents.
No, it's perfectly okay. First of all, I'd like to apologize to everybody that I had to move my location. My laptop was suddenly starting to run out of juice faster than I thought. So that's why I've had to. My background looks different. I want to kind of go back to what you were saying. Before I want to follow up with what you were saying because that was very. I think you were right about it. I just want to say something I forgot to point out about Q. And that is, Picard makes this mention, Q, you don't look at all well. In fact, Q at one point even slaps Picard, which is something we've never seen him do before. And we're wondering what's going on. Is Q finally going insane? We've always thought he was a little bit crazy to begin with. But has he pretty much lost his whole mind? I mean, if he's willing to have gone back in time and changed the past so radically, that's pretty dangerous. And you got to wonder, did the evil empire destroy the Q continuum? Wonder what's going on here. There's a lot that is going on. I've been talking with a lot of friends about this.
Well, Josh, let me interject something here because I'm curious in terms of what you think, because there was something else and of course everything that the Q has to say, we need to kind of fixate on. But
Mhm.
Q implied that Picard failed some sort of test. And so I'm wondering, well, maybe this wasn't actually something that Q did at all. Maybe it's actually something that Picard did, similar to along the lines when Q put in that episode Tapestry from TNG, where he put him in a situation. Picard makes one choice instead of another, and that choice leads to essentially a whole different reality being created.
Yes.
So I'm curious because that was significant. The fact
Yes.
that he suggested, "Oh, you made the wrong choice,"
Yeah.
and the implications in terms of what making that wrong choice meant.
Exactly. Yeah. I was getting that. I think that Picard has done something. We don't know what it is yet. That has caused this version of the evil empire to exist and to flourish and become more powerful. I mean, there's a lot more there that I'll go into next time. But um, you have so much that you're trying to piece here. What is Q saying? That Picard has done something, and he needs to either fix it. He's giving him the opportunity to fix it, but Q can't tell him what it was.
Or
Okay,
won't.
or won't. And Q never comes straight forward. He wants you to figure this out on your own. Q has always been Picard's, and to a certain extent, Janeway's. Well, not so much Janeway's teacher, more like Janeway's obsessive boyfriend or boyfriend wannabe, I think is what it is. But I think with Picard, he's always been trying to teach him something about himself, make him realize things. And this, when we last saw Q and Picard together, was in the episode All Good Things. And Q said to him that this is the great exploration, not of charting stars and nebulae, but of the discovery of the of humanity itself, And Picard says, Q, what do you mean? And Q looks like he's about to tell him something. He says, you'll find out. And if you're very lucky, I'll stop in and check on you from time to time. And, that sort of thing. So we're wondering what's going on here. I think the best thing to do is let's just go along for the ride. Going back to what else you were saying, this is just my thing, and you and I could talk about this another time. About I love Star Trek Discovery, as people know. If you've watched me on Rediscovering the Federation, I absolutely do love it. I have felt like there were problems initially. I felt as though that the show should have been set in a post TNG era. I thought that the redesign of the Klingons was awful. That said, I love the idea of having a black woman as the lead character. I love the idea of bringing in somebody as talented as Michelle Yeoh, is a big international superstar, has a lead character also. I love the fact of having more diversity, like a gay couple, a serious gay couple being on this show. I was not happy about how so much of that first season felt like, oh, this is Battlestar Galactica in Star Trek. That irritated me. I was happy though when it got midway through the season and Saru said, we're going to start acting like a Starfleet crew. And it felt like that was the real sea change right there. That said, I know that this was not Alex Kurtzman's idea. This was not how he wanted to do it. This had more to do with some of the powers that be at CBS at the time. You and I could talk about this more. I don't want to dwell on that. That said, I was very happy with what they did in season 2. Even though, yeah, okay, fine, the aesthetics don't match up. It doesn't look anything like the bridge from 1966. But let's put this in a bigger context. If Gene Roddenberry could have had the money and the foreknowledge of what technology in the future might have looked like,
he might have been able to design his bridge accordingly. I mean, in fact, he actually said sometimes that, hey, the original show was not everything he wanted it to be. And when he made motion picture, he felt like he got it closer to what he thought the bridge should have looked like and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was more of his, this is what I really wanted it to look more like. And some of it was great. The pajama uniforms, not so much. Klingons looked better, obviously. I'm a devout Klingon fan. But I think that you're right. You know, we have to be more open-minded. We can't be... I'm going to really step in it big time here. I'm going to get some hate mail. Fine, you know, we're all descended. We as Star Trek fans need to be open-minded, okay? The original series was great. I still love it. But I look at it now with a little bit more objectivism that says, okay, this was a show that was written at a time when cowboy TV shows were the dominant thing. And there were times that, William Shatner played Jim Kirk like a cowboy in the style of Matt Dillon and The Rifleman. But it was still a more progressive TV show than I think anything else that was on in 1966. So you cannot just simply say here in 2022 that, okay, you know, an older fan saying, well, Star Trek's always been progressive. You know, Kirk kissed Uhura. That was a big thing. Yes, that was a big thing 50 some odd years ago. But we now have to go to the next step, which is we have to have more inclusion. We have to have the gay couple. We have to have the non-binary character. I mean, yeah, you can make the big argument that Dax and DS9 was a trans character. Yeah, okay, you can make that. That was kind of a metaphor for that, but you know, and they went places with that, but not always. Obviously, having a non-binary character like Adira on Discovery is a real leap forward. But getting back to Picard, yes, obviously he is not the guy we remember 30 years ago at the end or even in the movies. He is like what Kirk became in Wrath of Khan, an older, more seasoned person that's looking back on, should I have done this? Should I have done that? I mean, you know, and we're definitely seeing this because people are asking Picard, hey, why didn't you get married? Why didn't you have a great love of your life? Why didn't you do this or that? And Picard keeps deflecting that question. It's like, I don't want to talk about it. And in some ways, I don't want to say he's having the same midlife crisis that Kirk seemed to be having in Wrath of Khan. I don't think it's that. I think there is something darker that is going on in Picard's past. And I think, and I'm going on a theory here. I know I wasn't going to go into this, but I think that they are, and I think Patrick is encouraging this, they are delving into Patrick Stewart's real life things. And I think he's wanted to go there and tell this story that I think in a way brings himself and his alter ego more closer together than we've ever seen. I don't want to say what it is, what I think it is. I think, though, that there was definitely some childhood trauma in Captain Jean-Luc or Admiral Jean-Luc Picard's life that we have never dealt with. I think has been hinted at. Things he has never talked about with Deanna or Will or Data or anyone. And I think now he is about to face those demons. And I think facing those demons is going to be the only way he saves the Federation and he saves the universe. And that is what, you know, I think is bringing, you know, that's what we're going back when I was saying earlier about, okay, the exploration is not of stars and nebula, but of ourselves. And now he has to finally face something because, yeah, okay, going out there, facing an unknown planet or a space anomaly, okay, that's not going to shake Jean-Luc Picard. Facing something from his past, I think he's going to be more scared than the Borg. I mean, he's always been sort of an introverted person and tried to keep things in, but then they've come to the surface, and he's had to face them, like when he was assimilated by the Borg, when he was tortured by the Cardassians. That's made him a more well-rounded character, I think, than the original And when I say the original, the TV series version of Kirk, I think the movie, I think William Shatner certainly played Kirk a lot differently in the Star Trek movies because he was a more older Kirk, a Kirk that had, done all these things, but it was like, feeling like, what do I have to show for? What do I do next? What else is going to happen? And trying to regain that balance in himself to keep doing what he had to do. And we're seeing that in Picard. It's like, he's going to have to go down this path, I think. And I don't think Deanna's going to be there to help him like she usually would. So he's in for a really dark ride here. So get ready, folks. It's easy. So we got a few more things. At any rate, so we are coming to the end of the show. Ulysses, would you like to talk a little bit about Fantastic Forum and where people can find you?
Yeah, that's great. But you know what? And I don't ordinarily do this. I'm gonna eschew talking about my own show because there are a couple of things that I'd wanted to get in. A few more Picard things. One
sorry.
is
no.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. One
yes.
is if you haven't seen Matt Jeffries' designs. It's worth, and some of these can be found on the internet. You just look up because Matt Jeffries was the original art director for the original Star Trek series. So I swear,
Jeffries teams are named after.
Yes. I think that these modern bridge designs are sort of based on some sketches that he had done back then, because Jeffries envisioned, particularly the shuttlecraft. Shuttlecraft wasn't going to be that little boxy thing that they had. I mean, he had something that looked a lot cooler. But again, in terms of being able to make a larger mock-up of it, they just weren't able to do that at the time. But some of his designs for a more expansive-looking bridge are really impressive. Other thing is, in terms of Q, remember he put humanity on trial, and the proposition was, we were a savage race. Well, you don't get much more savage than the Terran Empire. So I don't think that's an accident that this is where we are. And the last thing on that, in terms of your observation about there being something darker in Picard's past that they alluded to in that first episode, suggesting perhaps that his father was abusive to his mother and possibly even to him and his brother. I think that is absolutely going to play a part in what we see going forward. Fantasticforum.tv. Check it out.
Excellent. Well, that was very exciting. So, Ulysses, I hope you will come back and join us again another time. This has been really wonderful getting to talk to you about all this.
Thanks for having me.
I could talk for hours with anybody about Star Trek. Just ask anyone.
It's good stuff.
It's awesome stuff. It really is. So, okay. Well, as always, people can find me at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook. You can send your comments to me there about anything you agreed with, disagreed with, critical of my hair or lack thereof. And also my short story collection, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is still available on Amazon and Kindle. Please feel free to go check it out. And I will be signing copies on the weekend, in first weekend of June in Stanton, Virginia at the Bigfoot Conference. And hopefully I will also be making an appearance at Shore Leave. So please come check me out. And as always, I am Josh Pritchett.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's just delightful to be able to be here with you. And like I said, fantasticforum.tv. The show airs on WERA 96.7 FM in Arlington, Virginia, each and every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 5 in first run. The show re-airs on WERA Thursdays from 3 to 4. It's also available as a podcast on all the platforms where you can find and download your favorite podcast. Please enjoy.
Thank you all, and please come back in next week.